Good evening and welcome to the channel. My name is Duke Steffan and it is time to review another fight. So let's get straight into it. We are looking today at another fight between myself and Master Ianto Van Diemen. The reason I'm doing another video with me in it is partly to train myself to see what I'm seeing and increase my analytical skills and start by being critical of my own fighting and being able to critique my own fighting. It's something as a fighter that we need to be comfortable doing. We need to be able to look at how we fight as individuals, but outside of ourselves with no judgment and just look purely at the technique. So it's something that, I learned to do as an actor. It's something that I've brought into my fighting to be able to kind of separate myself from the work that I do as a review process. And so while I'm starting to develop these analytical skills, I'm thinking it's great to start with myself to be, kind of critical there. But it also means that I'm going to help myself become a better fighter. So I encourage you to do the same. Critique my fights or critique your own. Let me just get this set up a little bit clearer here. Actually, I forgot that I don't need my pencil and my notebook. Because I have this one here. So, all right, so I've queued this up ready to go from the start of this fight. We'll watch through the fight and then come back and have another look at it bit by bit to see what we can see. So let's go. Oh, no, it helps if there's a lot of background noise on this with the wind. Very windy day. It was a beautiful day for fighting, actually. So this was a recent session between myself, Master Ianto, and His Majesty King Leofric. So both of us shot there, no good on the leg shot that I threw, and Ianto threw a shot up the back here that didn't have anything. This time he took my leg, I did not connect with anything. A little bit of chatty chat, explaining to each other why our shot wasn't any good, or at least why my shot wasn't any good. Thrust there that missed, coverage. Ianto coming over with the offsides, connecting but no power. And I managed to take him out in the end. So a little bit of a touch underneath the armpit there, but wasn't enough in that moment. So let's go back to the start. There's the leg shot that was no good. So this must be the start of the fight. So that's about right. Cool. So we're at 219. I'll remember that for later. Okay, so let's see what we can see. Squaring up, nice on the edges of range here. Feeling comfy. Ian goes for a little push. Ianto goes for a nice little push in there. So let's have a look at that again. Goes for a nice little pressure push. Just this little step that he takes here. Push there and a step in. So that's interesting. He throws a kind of a semi-fake high and then drops down low, which I feel like is probably a little bit too far at range. Yeah. So he's gone a bit of a throw high, which really hasn't made me react too much because it's not really committed. You can see that it's not really coming in. See that one there? There's a little bit of a shift, but it's more his drop down to the side here that really starts to pull my defenses down. Now, interestingly, you can have a look here. My sword tip is still quite high. I really should have let my wrist go there to cover my face as he was coming in, because the risk of a rising snap up through here is very prevalent. So my shield has started to drop. And you can see here, this is something that's really important to note. The shield, if you look at the arm drops a little bit, but most of the action starts in a body crunch from the hips. So by keeping this frame here with the shield, crunching here, the arm has to do less work, which makes it faster on the recovery when you go to cover the headshot after that. So Ianto throws something high, which doesn't really do anything, and it's actually his large step that drops his body low. We've talked about that before. And he starts to come down on the right-hand side there. That makes me start to cover low. Yep, you can see the tip dropping there to cover. Sword's kind of skipped out. He's gone the thrust, and I've ducked my head to the right to miss it. So that thrust is not really placed quite right. I've stepped into his charge to brace him, which is actually put me in a very good physical position and him in a very bad physical position. So when you think about lines of force, I'll just get my little pen here, go slightly smaller. When we think about lines of force, his lines of force are both directed forwards, which means that there is no stability behind or in front. Actually, let me clear that and make that clearer. He has lines of force going through his feet. So his lines of force will be side to side because that's where his feet are. So behind him and in front of him, he has no force, nothing to support him. So if we were doing hand-to-hand combat, this would be an opportunity where I could push him and he would literally just fall straight down because there is no third leg or fourth leg behind him. If you can imagine that he had four legs, you would hope that the fourth leg is here and the third leg and the fourth leg are here and here. So you're getting that stability on all four sides. But we don't have four legs. And so we don't have that. It looks like he's pooping. So, I could push him there. Now, I could push him at this point and potentially cause him to fall. But, obviously that's not what we're going to do. But you can see that he's in a really kind of constricted position. He can't get his balance. So his knees are so far forward from his body. And all he can do is kind of bounce back and fall backwards. Now, interestingly, I threw a leg shot there that didn't get any traction. Oh. Let's just clear that screen. Let's go back and look at that leg shot on his retreat. So I can skip back. Let's go back a couple of seconds. So we'll come into this. So what could Ian have done better here? Let's start with that. Well, I think this giant step, and we talk about this a lot with Ianto, and he's working through this quite actively, is to consciously focus on reducing the size of his steps, to the point where the other day he suggested that he might buy a very large rubber band and put it around his ankles and force himself, or a bit of fabric, and force himself to not be able to step that big because he's so aware of it. Not in the moment, obviously. He's so committed to closing that range that he just takes this giant lunge step, and it changes his height. It changes all the lines of his shots, and it doesn't help him. He's aware of it. He's working on it. But anyway, so that's the first thing. So if you look here, you can just see as his hand comes down, it actually looks like he's attempting for that to be a thrust the whole way. I thought it was for a leg snap, but it's not. He's attempting that. When you look at the roll of his hand and his wrist there, it's actually intended to come in as a thrust, and it's missed. So it's caught, a big part of the plateau of my shield, which hasn't helped. Now, at this point, rather than continuing to close where I'm able to close in, and look at the positioning. Look, this is just all physically bad for him. In fact, if you even look here, both of his feet are off the ground. So he's actually come in and he's leapt forward. He's that committed to closing that range that he's leapt forward. So at this point, right there, he is not touching the ground. And that is bad. He has no choice but to continue in the direction he's going. He cannot move where he's going, which means that really, if I was a little bit more aware of that, I should have taken a much bigger step to my right and just wrapped him. But he caught me off unawares enough that I didn't see that. So, but either way, when I look at my movement here and what I could have done to exploit this better, okay, this isn't, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's definitely kind of getting him off guard. But this here, let's have a look at this. Crunch in to engage my hips. So you can see this physical drop here where I hunker in to engage my core. And at this point, I throw this shot, but I step with my left foot. Now, at this point, I had the option to choose which foot I was going to step with. I should have stepped with the shot, with the side that I was throwing the shot from. And I should have stepped not straight ahead. I should have stepped, when I'm looking at this, out here. Or, at least to this kind of angle out here somewhere, not here. This has done nothing to give me any kind of line advantage. So I should have stepped with this foot, and I should have followed This whole side of my body should have followed that hip around with that sword. So the sword and the hip should have all traveled together. But instead, I've decided to throw this off-sided wrap with my other foot. So that's interesting. And that's good to note. So I have hunkered in, started to throw the shot, stepped with my shield foot, which has done nothing to give me any kind of line advantage. So thinking or moving a bit too linear there, I should really have been thinking more offline. And that has not helped generate power for this shot. And if you look here in this moment where it lands, it's clean. It's definitely not hit his shield, but it is right at the very tip of my sword. And there is actually no more power that I can get into that shot because of how I'm positioned and how I moved. So essentially, by stepping with my shield foot in this moment, I've actually restricted the amount of power that I can get through that shot. And I've actually removed power by stepping with the wrong foot. So really great to note. Really great to note. Boom. I mean, obviously, good coverage for myself when you look at where his sword is. Good coverage for me, tucked in behind the shield, looking down at his feet to see where he's moving to. So, I'm well covered. I'm feeling comfortable there, but definitely lost a bit of opportunity there. And here is a massive opportunity for Ianto. I've talked to Ianto about this a couple of times. It's something I don't do anywhere near as much as I should either. This opportunity here, onto the back foot, and at this point, he continues back. But imagine what he could have done if he hits this foot here and then pops forward again, or stops. And sometimes that's the key. If you look at what happened earlier where Ianto's rushing in, I haven't necessarily backed off at all. I've actually taken a little half step forward to brace against his approach, but I've held my ground and then moved forward from there. Imagine if Ianto did that in this moment. Imagine if when we're fighting, rather than continuing that back out, we create another opportunity for ourselves. You can see that my shield is high. I'm going to have to come out of that at some point and expose the top of my head again because I'm going to need to come and see over the top of my shield or at least come to an A-frame. But anyone who knows me knows that my defense comes to here. It drops here. My shield edge sits just under my eye. So you know that this part of my head is going to come back out. So Ianto has an amazing opportunity here to bounce off this back foot. So he's on the retreat, lands on this foot. He continues back and we disengage. But look at how exposed the top of my head is, and look at how exposed I am for an offside. I am really exposed for an offside there. So this is an opportunity for someone I'm very square on. Like I'm not kind of using my line very well at all. He's created a line shift by actually stepping back offline. So he hasn't stepped back in a direct line. He's actually stepped back on an angle, which has created a bit of a line advantage for him. But imagine if instead of continuing back here, he bounced off that foot and held his ground or stepped forward. That moment there would have created an opportunity for him, possibly, because I may have done something differently or I may have kept coverage if I saw that he wasn't continuing to retreat. It's a gamble, but it's a good gamble when you can see how well covered your shield is on my sword. Like my sword is not going to be able to hit you there in the way that I'm recovering. Again, it's that risk of I may have done something different, but to bounce forward or to hold your ground at that point may have created that opportunity for him to strike me with a good snap in the top of the head, an offside to the head or an offside to the arm over the side of my shield. And he could easily have come bouncing off that foot. If he'd changed his line and instead of this foot going back here, if this foot from this position, let's go back, see if we can get that back. Whoop. Where was that? So let's go. Sorry, we'll just step through this again. We'll just play this through. Boom, crunch, boom. Okay, here we go. So instead of this foot coming back here, if from here he lands on this foot here, sinks into this foot, sinks into the heel here, and regains his balance by sinking into that to just stabilize himself, and then popping off this foot, but actually coming this way, he would have created an even bigger gap on here to throw into by coming around my shield. He would have come around this side of my shield and had the potential to absolutely destroy me in that moment. So that is something I am going to have to be very conscious of, is that I'm being a little bit too linear at the moment. So that's great to know, but great opportunity for Ianto. So we know why that shot didn't land. I wasn't throwing it properly with the right hip. I should have, rather than doing, something that kind of felt like a counter rotation, but in reality was just the wrong foot. I should have stepped with the foot that was throwing the shot. So if I'm throwing an offside, I'll generally come with the shield side foot because the body will then travel behind the sword. On this side, throwing that wrap, I should have stepped with that foot and I would have gotten deeper reach, and the whip of that tip coming in would have had a lot more travel in it, because that hip would have been forward. I would have had so much more distance that could have been put into that sword. So that's why I got wrong on that one. And then Ianto had an opportunity there that he missed, which is fascinating. So, disengagement. Let's play through here. Bit of a talky, re-engage again. All right, cool. So, what are we doing here? Ianto has ducked in behind his shield and stepped to his left. I have seen that dip and step, so I am starting to throw a wrap, hopefully into where his head is about to be. And I can see, you can see that big step that's coming from here. I can see his whole body starting to shift that way, which is giving me the cue. So I'm coming in. I've taken a big step to cut that range, and I'm throwing, defending high. So we're really, two of us aren't doing a lot here. We've come in and kind of not really thrown anything. If I was smart, I would have thrown just a leg shot at this point, just crushed it right down into his thigh. And he would have come underneath my shield and done the same if we were both thinking better. Anyway, so he's stepping around. I try and throw that. He's stepping through it. In fact, that's exactly what he did. He threw under my shield and caught my leg. Perfect shot. Nice. He's driven me high and he's come in underneath to catch that leg. His step to the left is defended. In this case, because he's actually a bit square on behind his shield, he's actually managed to cover himself. And I'm pretty sure that's a good leg. I throw that, but you can see coming out of that, I didn't crunch anywhere enough body behind that, and I've started retreating on the shot. So I'm actually pulling the power out of that shot as it leaves, which is a shame. And that's why that shot had no power, and that's why he legged me. Much better shot from him than I could throw in that moment. That's a shame, but good job. Great shot. So drove me high, stepped under, and cut down low to take out that leg. Nice little combo. I would say if you look back at his physicality in that moment, again, he's kind of got an awkward spot where he's kind of, look at the awkwardness of his shape here. So just kind of crunching his body into weird kind of shapes. That head, that big kind of tilt to the right. It's possibly something that's helped drive a bit of power in there, but again, that sense of throwing that shot, bouncing back in and coming in over the top. Look how exposed, like he's got the line advantage here without a doubt. He's come to this side. I'm still here. This whole side of my body is again exposed. So again, a little pop off that back foot there. And instead of retreating, pop forward, throw the offside over the top of the shield. At this point, bounce here and throw this offside as you're traveling in. You're likely going to catch something on my offside here, because again, he's won the line advantage in this moment by coming sideways where I've been too linear. Oh, Steffan, you got to fix that. Good to know. Bit of talking. Let's get into it. All right, so let's just back up. All right, so okay, so he's come in, he's closed the range enough to get into a comfy range for himself. Okay, so he throws a thrust high. Oh, look how blocked I've done like that. So let's see. One of the things I'm looking for at the moment is overblocking. It was pointed out to me by Helgi that I was overblocking a bit in some of my defense. So I'm kind of looking out for that a bit as well. And I think this is an opportunity here to see that I overblocked this. I've gone punched up high to try and cut it. Maybe, yeah. So I probably, when you see how extended that arm is, it didn't need to be that extended. I could have really stopped that block right there. But there's, another 3-4 inches of range that I've lost. Mind you, had he bounced off that, he may have bounced and kept coming in over the top, possibly, but I think I could probably have gotten away with that. Anyway, so high block, and he's dipped underneath the shield because it was so high. He had plenty of time. He's gone the thrust, and thankfully, he's done a completely bodged job on his line, or maybe the shield was just in the way enough that he had to try and get around it. No, you can see, oh, look at that. Look at the fabric. Look at this. Look at this here. He catches the fabric. Look at this right here. Look at the shadow change in this moment as this sword passes through my Akaton. So he clips. Let me just get this. Boom. Look at that shift. So he's caught the fabric. So his line of his wrist is just a little too twisted to this side. If he'd had that line just a little bit more towards the other side of my body, he would have stuck me good. So an opportunity there for Ianto. And again, if you actually look at the physicality of his shape, this stance is deep, but it's not a huge problem. I think the problem that he's got is that he's kind of twisted and rolled forward, which has pushed the line across me rather than actually keeping. If he'd kept his physicality a little bit more erect and had that straight sort of spine, that would have pulled all of this back around here, and he would have probably had me. So again, poor alignment has probably lost him that shot and given me a little bit of safety to be able to stay alive. So damn it, he's working on that alignment stuff at the moment too. Once he fixes that, that's going to be a problem. All right. So misses that, decides to press in and cover the range. I push on his shield to try and affect his shield, which actually gives him a lot of space to come over the top. Sort of land something on each other there that kind of scoops out. Neither of us land a great shot. So he's a little bit out of alignment, and that's not landed with any great power. Now, I will say, a little bit later after this fight ended, I said to him, oh, you know what? I think you hit me here. And it wasn't until we came back together to have a look at where that could have, because I didn't remember him throwing an offside that way. That's the moment. In the moment when it landed, it didn't really feel like it had much power. After we stopped the fight, I actually started to feel a bit of a sting on that arm. And we backtracked through the video afterwards and realized this is the moment where he hit me in the arm. So he's actually thrown a wrap at my head and missed. And it's actually connected with my upper arm as I've attempted to throw the offside body, offside shot here, which has just scooped up his hole. He's just scooped that up with his shield quite nicely. So no good for either of us. But another wonderful opportunity here for Ianto. If he's thrown this wrap here, everything here is cocked for this shot. You can imagine if you've thrown this wrap, pop here. So make my microphone in the back of my head, popped it here. Nothing's stuck, hasn't managed to land it. Everything is kind of cocked. If you roll this wrist and then just drive the body here, you can pop this shot in nice and tight on this side. So you can pop it here and then punch and come across on here. There's actually a chance with the space there that may have been a second follow-up shot that he could have done, or even just popping out here and allowing the travel of that shot to pop here and just pulling it in, and then just you roll the whole body and drop the elbow and it whips this in, and it's just everything connected through this whole side of the body. So the wrap, and then just get the elbow as close to your body as you can as you crunch, pop, and it whips that shot in here. And, you can, I'm doing it because the microphone's here, but, if you pop up high, you can keep the hand high and pull it across as you pull that in and still get a high shot. So you can pull that snap in and, again, loosen off the wrist. You can pull it and let the whole sword drop as you do it, and you'll get a funny angle on it, but it's still got enough power because you're nice and loose in the wrist. It's got all the gravity. It's just traveling through that shot. But anyway, so that's possibly another opportunity he could have had there when he bounced out of that shot. Popped here, but see how he's actually hit, and he's just pulled the hand down. So rather than allowing that momentum to continue through and create an opportunity for power straight into that shot, he's actually pulled all the power out of that. Now, maybe it's because it landed with a bit of a thud and there wasn't much to it, but there's definitely an opportunity there to boom on that, let that travel up, and then roll it in. So, but if you look at his hand as that lands, and then directly after that moment, his hand travels back towards him and the tip goes high, and he's got no room to throw that shot. And he's leaning in, he's got that foot going out to the right, he's dropping down. Oh, he's trying to throw. Oh, he comes around to try and throw the snap, but it's a very long shot. Cool. So yeah, so he could have tightened that up by allowing that momentum to just pop, and then you can pull the hand high to create that momentum and then drop it in nice and tight here. And it's a much faster shot. You don't get all of that travel that the sword has to do, which is essentially what gives me the time to defend that shot. He would have had that done in half the time and been able to, even if you pop it up and throw another wrap in, you're going to have that done in half the time. So you can get really fast wraps in that moment. So again, whips past the head with an offside shot there. Not enough in it.
No. Oh, yeah.
Cool. So nice little tussle there. Ianto's throwing a couple offside shots there, one that touches my head, one that touches my armpit. And on video, they look like they should be good shots. But he is only recently really started to throw those offsides. We've all got some shots that we don't generally throw. For me, it was Molinets. I got through all of my fighting career, 2 crowns, and basically never threw a Molinet. Never did it. Offside to that side leg. Oh, not something I've ever thrown into the body. Never threw them. Just could never get the body mechanic right. Could never get the timing right. So I just didn't put it into my game. I've started putting them into my game, and I'm trying to throw them a lot more. So we've all got shots that we can kind of get through without throwing. And for Ianto, the offsides have been the thing for him that he hasn't been comfortable throwing, just hasn't worked for him, and he's really pushing himself to throw those more and more and to get them to work because they're just such a vital shot. And he's getting to the point where that timing and placement is really nice, and he's just got to get the body positioning right and the rotation correct, which isn't going to take much now, and they're going to start to whale in pretty well. But yeah, a bit of a missed opportunity there, and that's why. So if we go back and have a look at the physicality, we'll probably see his body out of alignment. So yeah, that's that shot. Boom. So you can see they're just really arm shots. He's just arming them in. There's no real body rotation in behind it. So let's watch his physicality here. Go the frame by frame. Throws the snap, drops that over, and see how there's really no rotation in his body. It's all arm. So he's just popped high and dropped the hand over. And that in itself, there's a little bit of body there, but he's not connected well enough through his body there to give that any power, which is a shame because it looks online-ish. And it should have been a killing blow. That should have killed me. Meanwhile, I'm ridiculously throwing into the bottom of his shield. Might look at that later, but for now. So he pops high again, comes back with the second one, and again, look at this action. Here's why this shot doesn't land. Throws it. It's all arm popping up. There is body moving to that side, but it's not following the sword in. He's in midair when that lands, so he's got no real grunt behind it. He lands, he comes back, pushes around to defend that shot, comes over for the third one, goes for a bit of a lean, gets the body there, and look at that spot. That's dead in my armpit, and there was no power in that. Oh, actually, it kind of looks like it touches my forearm a little bit, which might have taken a bit of the power out of the tip, but there was still no real power in it for the forearm either. So let's have a look at this. Look at the way that sword travels. So that's coming in more of a push than a whip. So that offside, he's come from here and essentially pushed it forward to try and drive it in, rather than coming to here and whipping with the whole body behind it. So it's really just become a bit of a push. Let's have a look at that again. Boom. Let's go backwards. Okay, so it comes in. Oh no, I was looking at the wrong thing. So rotation of the arm, it's all arm. Again, look, he's up on tippy toes. All of his body is rising up. I was wrong. I was looking at the reverse shot of the other one. So this is the forward. So again, look at his body. Look at the foot on his sword side, his sword foot, his right foot. His right foot is traveling forward, which is naturally going to twist the body differently. There's no real kind of push in there. He's just kind of leapt up, and that's why there's no power in that shot. So he's not grounded. He's not driving the power through that shot. Look at the awkwardness of his step here. He's got himself out of the line, and I've managed to come up over the top and throw that. The impact of that looks like it's offline, but it's actually come over into his neck. And I think the offside body that I throw at this point is also what he calls good. So let's go back. So that's a body shot. So I've thrown that into his breastplate. So let's have a look at that. So look at the difference in the mechanic here. So pop this out. The sword rotates through. I get that drive forward to really start to get a bit of a whip. You'll see it roll up, and watch my body. This is why that whole body rotates in behind that sword to give it that spot. Comes out of that because I've realized, oh, there's some stuff on this side. Winding up again, throw this, and from my knees, able to rise up and get that just to whip over. And I'm using the whip action there rather than, so I'm pushing forward. My body's moving forward, which is helping drive power into that. So I'm not pulling power out of that shot. The body rising forward, it is coming up, but it's definitely moving forward. Look at my knee. It's coming forward into that shot. So the body's coming with it. And that gets me the kill. So a really great tussle. A little bit of joy from me. So there you go. A lot in that. What do we take out of that? Probably the biggest takeaways for me out of that fight would be just being conscious of how linear we get at sometimes as fighters. And for me at the moment, that's a bit of a problem. I need to really start thinking about using my 22s and my 45-degree lines a lot more. Definitely making sure that you are got enough grounded control to land shots. So you're never going to land a shot with power when you're floating in midair. If you saw my shot, I stepped with the wrong foot as I threw that shot. I'm not going to get proper power behind that shot. I might be lucky, I might get it through, but ultimately it's not going to be a great shot. So making sure that we are grounded properly when we're throwing our shots and we've got the body coming through with that force. Just being really conscious of line. Ianto had a couple of line advantages on me, and rather than retreating all the time that we tend to do, we'll come in, we'll gunshot a couple of things, and we'll back out. But that sense of being able to kind of create a timing break by, if you're both retreating, you can then start to push forward real quick and you'll catch your opponent off guard. Or if they're coming at you, you can stop and you catch them off guard as they take that next step, and you shut on top of them after that. So just creating that beaded timing break with just a push back and a bounce forward, or a stop and then back in, you can catch them off guard, and they will have a moment where they react to you, and you're already pushing in knowing that that reaction is coming. You can take advantage of that. There's a couple of times there where I think Ianto could have had me had he taken advantage of those timing breaks and created them for himself. So there you go. Thanks for joining me, and hope you stick around and look at some more fight videos. And of course, if you want me to have a look at some fight videos, drop a link in the comments, because I'd love to look at some other stuff. So thanks very much. I'll see you on the next one.